Law and order. President Trump doubling down on his message at a rally in Pennsylvania last night. The president going after Joe Biden, saying that Biden said the message is a distraction. Listen.
He is a puppet of the socialists, Marxists, and the cop-hating extremists, and they are cop-hating. And we love our law enforcement.
Wants to only talk about dividing the country and about law and order. They're trying to divert us in the attention.
He's trying to change now. You know, he's saying that's not working because we're going up and he's dropping like a rock in water.
Boy, after his convention, he really made inroads. He hasn't. Not at all.
Joining me now, White House Deputy Communications Director Brian Morgenstern. Where does the president go from here in his message, Brian?
He's going to continue to pound the pavement and visit Americans all across this country and offer any federal support that they need to restore safety in their streets. He's been very clear for months, actually, and a leader on this subject, always offering any resources that communities may need. The Democrats were denying it for months, and now finally Joe Biden's out of the basement acknowledging what's actually going on, but still trying to downplay it. The president will continue to support law enforcement, will continue to offer any federal law enforcement resources or National Guard or whatever communities may need so that people can go about their daily lives, get their businesses running, get out, go to church, go to school, whatever they need. The president's there to offer support. He went to Kenosha to offer money to support small businesses, to offer law enforcement support. He actually had solutions. Joe Biden, playing follow the leader, shows up a couple days later, gives a bizarre whispering speech where he had a supporter with a script. I mean, it was just weird and unhelpful.
But Brian, wasn't that in a church? That's why he was using that tone of voice, because it was in a house of worship.
But you can speak in a house of worship in a normal way and offer solutions. He did neither of those things. He followed President Trump a couple days later to the community and didn't offer any solutions. All he offered was criticism. The president's going to continue to go and visit with Americans and ask them what they need, and he's going to offer whatever he can to support them.
The race for the White House tightening. New Quinnipiac University polls have Joe Biden leading President Trump in the key states of Florida and Pennsylvania. This you can see the difference there, 48 to 45 in Florida. This, as new Fox News polls, and he's got a bigger lead in Pennsylvania at the moment. And then the new Fox News polls for Arizona, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. These are states that President Trump won, but Joe Biden right now is leading in those three states. One issue I want to raise with you, that it appears as if that President Trump, his approval ratings in these states that Fox News polled are actually higher than where he is in the polls. And that gives President Trump some room for improvement and to basically pick up gains in the polls. The question is, in these states, how does he do that?
Well, he's going to offer jobs, opportunities, security, things that actually matter for people's lives. And look, polls 4 years ago showed the president, not doing too well. How'd that work out? He ended up winning. Everywhere he visits, he has support. People line the streets with Trump flags, waving them. People will bust through cinder block walls like the Kool-Aid man to vote for Donald Trump. I don't think anybody really has that attitude about Joe Biden. And it's because Donald Trump is offering jobs, opportunity, security, and Joe Biden's just offering criticism. It's about policy and support with Donald Trump. It just seems to be about cynical politics from the other side.
But you must expand the base. And President Trump, I think he won 88% of the Republican vote 4 years ago. He's polling above 90%, maybe 91, 92% among Republicans, but he's trailing among independents. It's how do you get those people to vote for President Trump?
The president has a very inclusive message. I wouldn't read too much into a lot of flawed polling that's out these days, a lot of push polling, maybe suppression polling. The president's message is very inclusive. It is a big tent message where he wants to create, again, the most successful economy we've had for African Americans, for Hispanics, for women, for Asian Americans, for every demographic. He wants them to do better tomorrow than they're doing today. And he is the job-creating president. We're going to get back to that point point. We're going to continue this V-shaped recovery, and that kind of opportunity and the security message that he's offering is going to resonate with voters as we get even closer to the election.
But can he do a better job at communicating with the people who are still hurting? Because you still have millions of Americans who are collecting jobless. There's 13.2 million people who are still collecting jobless benefits in this country. Those are the continuing claims. And you still have close to 900,000 people filing for first-time unemployment benefits. Now, again, he has stepped up with extra $300 through an executive order in unemployment benefits. He stepped up with a payroll tax deferral. But you also have to, so that's the walk, but it also has to show up in the talk. How does he do that?
Well, look, he's been here, not only here in Washington, ready to negotiate to get more money for jobs and for kids, to open schools and to support people maybe who are hurting, the ones you described, Dagan. The president wants additional unemployment insurance for anyone who's still suffering. He wants additional small business support because half the workforce in this country is employed by small businesses. We want people to remain connected to their jobs. The president has never wavered in that. And, you know, if you look back over the last few months, there's been tremendous bipartisan support for this type of effort. The CARES Act is a great example of that, of course, basically passed with unanimous support. But what has changed? It's not that people still don't need support. That remains true, and the president remains supportive of giving them that support. What's changed is we've got a little bit closer to the election, and now we see the Democrats digging in their heels for political purposes. And that's really unfortunate. The president is here, ready to work for the American people, provide support to small businesses, helping them get back open, help schools get back open, help families with their needs. He'll continue to do whatever he can from the executive level, but we also remain ready to negotiate with Congress as well, and we're hopeful to get more support.
Thank you, Brian. Good to see you this morning. Brian Morgenstern. Come back soon.
Thanks, Dagan.